Chapter 18. New Clothes 2. The shopkeeper impatiently waved his hands, and the assistant quickly ran into the back hall. Not long later, before Xu Qing had chosen his clothes, the assistant already returned with a large number of clothes in his arms. After he hung them up, Xu Qing immediately had his eyes on a deep-colored inner fur leather jacket. This was something someone custom-made but had no way to return and buy it. After the amount of time it took to finish burning an incense stick, when Xu Qing walked out of the shop, the article of clothing he was wearing was none other than that deep-colored inner fur jacket. This clothing could isolate the cold and wasn't thick or heavy. Moreover, the degree of warmth Xu Qing felt when he wore it was far greater compared to the clothes he had worn before. The only bad thing was that he was too small and skinny. So, this jacket looked like an overcoat on him. The sight of it wasn't very matching. However, Xu Qing was very happy. When he was walking on the road, he carefully avoided some places that were slightly dirty. Just when he was about to search for Fat Mountain, he noticed that there were sounds of a clamor from outside of the campsite. Also, many of the scavengers in the campsite walked out at the same time. There was a hint of anticipation in their eyes as they moved in the direction of the sounds. Xu Qing also lifted his head to look over. Gradually, under the sunlight, he saw a group of over 10 horse carriages driving over here in a majestic manner. For those seated there, even the clothing of the guards was incomparably vibrant. Their faces were rosy, and their gazes were sharp. Also, shocking fluctuations of spirit energy could be sensed from them. As for the people inside the carriage, Xu Qing couldn't see any, but he could guess that they were people with very important status. Xu Qing had also heard of such a convoy from Captain Lei before. It seemed that they would come to the campsite, often for trading, or to purchase the 7-leaf grass used to concoct white pills. Fat Mountain silhouette also appeared among the crowd, and after Xu Qing's focus was attracted, he no longer paid any attention to the convoy. Instead, he narrowed his eyes and stared at Fat Mountain, starting to follow him secretly. Maybe it was because of the convoy's arrival, but the campsite today was very lively and a bazaar was created. Hence, from the start until now, Xu Qing couldn't find an opportunity. This lasted all the way until late at night. He saw Fat Mountain returning to that big house again. Thus, he could only keep the dagger in his sleeves and turn to leave. Although he had no chance to act today, Xu Qing had plenty of patience. After he returned to the small house, he wore his newly bought clothes and sat down to cultivate. Even when he was asleep, he didn't take off his new clothes. This lasted until the next morning when he was preparing to head out to find opportunities. Only then did he lovingly remove his inner fur jacket, changing back to his tattered coat. Looking at his new clothes, Xu Qing felt that he had been somewhat too impulsive yesterday. At this moment, Xu Qing wore his tattered coat and walked around the campsite. As he passed by a crowded market, his gaze seemed to be surveying the passing carriages. But he was actually searching for Fat Mountain's figure. Far away, Old Master 7th yawned and was with the servant on a rooftop. His gaze swept past the carriages and turned to Xu Qing. After that, he casually asked the servant beside him, "Have you sent the invitation to Grandmother Bai?" Old Master 7th, if delivered it. But Grandmother Bai said that he feels a little unwell recently. Unwell? Isn't he a doctor? He really is. Anyway, I remember that this kid bought new clothes yesterday. But why did he change back to his old ones today? As Old Master 7th spoke halfway, he noticed what Xu Qing was wearing, so he couldn't help but be puzzled. While Old Master 7th was puzzled, Xu Qing locked onto Fat Mountain in the crowd from the corner of his eyes. Just like this, an entire day passed as Xu Qing followed his target. As late night came, Fat Mountain, who originally wanted to return to his residence, suddenly changed his direction for an unknown reason. He actually headed to the Outer Ring region in the middle of the night. That place was comparatively more remote. Has he discovered me? Xu Qing frowned and narrowed his eyes. His gaze gradually became colder. He didn't continue to follow but surveyed the surroundings instead. After confirming that the other party was indeed heading there alone, he circled around and continued advancing in the darkness. Reaching the Outer Ring in advance before Fat Mountain did, he ascertained that there were no ambushes here first. His eyes then gleamed with coldness as he hid in the darkness, and at this moment, Fat Mountain also arrived in the area, but his footsteps suddenly stopped. "Prat, I already sensed someone following me yesterday. Just come out. This place is very remote and is suitable for burying your corpse. If you don't dare to come out now, you'll no longer be alone next time. Even if Captain Lei protects you, us blood shadows will still be able to make you pay a price. Xu Qing's eyes narrowed. The other party had stated it this way, so there was no longer a need to hide. Hence, he walked out of the darkness. Horseford didn't secretly accept a mission and head out, right? He must have been killed by you. I have underestimated you. Fat Mountain malevolently laughed and looked at Xu Qing, who walked out. But no worries, I've long since found him unpleasant to my. Even if you didn't kill him, I plan to finish him off in our next outing. So, I still have to thank you. Also, I don't care about his life or death, but there's something in his pouch that I want. It should be in your hands now, right? Fat Mountain glanced at the leather pouch at Xu Qing's waist as a hint of greed flashed in his eyes. He didn't wait for Xu Qing to answer. His body shifted as his rotund figure actually erupted forth with a speed that exceeded the second level of Che condensation. The spirit energy fluctuations from him were much stronger than before. In fact, it even formed a layer of airflow around his body, bringing the cold wind along. His entire person was like an ice ball ramming toward Xu Qing. He wasn't at the second level of Che condensation. From the spirit energy fluctuations at this moment, he had reached the third level. It was also precisely because of this, in addition to the item he wanted from Horsefor's pouch, that he decided to come out tonight alone. Xu Qing narrowed his eyes. This was his first time fighting a head-on battle against another cultivator. To make it even worse, the airflow barrier around Fat Mountain's body was something formed by spirit energy. Fortunately, Xu Qing was confident in both his strength and speed. Hence, at the instant the other party came near, Xu Qing also rushed out ferociously. He erupted all his strength and unleashed his maximum speed, causing his movements to leave behind some afterimages. In the blink of an eye, he dodged Fat Mountain. When Fat Mountain was clearly startled, Xu Qing had already arrived behind him. After that, he lifted his right hand and erupted forth with the entirety of his strength in a single punch.